Coming up on Locked On Boston College, Dylan Lonergan does not practice, and I am not worried at all.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. I've been covering Boston College for over a decade. If you're looking for Boston College news, analysis, and scoops, you are in the right place. Locked On Boston College is a free daily Boston College podcast available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. On today's show, we're on to Michigan State. We're going to look at the Spartans. What does BC need to expect on Saturday's game, and what kind of matchup is this going to look at? We'll give our first brief look at that. After week 1 and week 0, has our expectations changed against the opponents that BC has played? What have they shown? I'll explain some of my thoughts on that. And crisis averted. Dylan Lonergan, some people thought he was going to be out. We got good news today at practice, and we'll tell you more about that. So let's kick that off. Now, on Labor Day, I started getting pinged. People were saying, "Hey, AJ, I'm hearing rumors." Or, I saw someone on Twitter say that quarterback Dylan Lonergan had been seen in a boot. And I said, look, I only saw one person saying this. I don't know who that person is. I'm not really chasing one random person's thought. Started hearing more and more of this, though, on Tuesday. My site reporter, Mia Dragoni, went to practice today, find out that Dylan Larnigan is not practicing. Panic level starts to rise a little bit, right? Like, your starting quarterback who just made his first start, is he going to miss the Michigan State game? Well, good news for BC for two reasons. The logistical reason, Bill O'Brien, during his press conference on Tuesday, said that, yes, Larnigan did not practice, but it was for treatment, that he needed treatment after Saturday's game. And we're not going to, guess what injury it was, but he needed treatment and might as well just do it early on in the week. He said that Larnigan will be back at practice on Wednesday and he'll be ready to go on Saturday. So again, crisis averted there. Now, the other piece of this, though, is even if maybe I trust Bill O'Brien. He's usually pretty upfront with injury stuff. He's not going to play, and then he's not going to play. But even if he doesn't, this is the first year in a long time Boston College has a quarterback situation where, hey, maybe Larnigan needs a week. It's okay. You get Grayson James. He's more than capable to play for you and be as good, pretty good for you. So I look at this situation and I say, well, hey, I'd love to see Larnigan, but if Grayson James has to play, we're going to be fine. But we don't have to worry about that. Larnigan will be there. And, am I concerned about where he's at health-wise? I don't know what the situation is. O'Brien did not give any specifics on where the treatment was or what was going on. I saw him limp off in the third quarter of last week's game. Maybe it had something to do with that, but maybe that's what it is. Maybe he got dinged up and he just needs to get that treated and he'll be good to go. I don't know. It's not my, I don't want to speculate on injuries I don't know about. So that's one piece. When you're looking at what he can do, though, this is a perfect game for him to really have a breakout performance because Michigan State has a decent defense. They're going to be better than, they're obviously going to be better than Fordham. But they're not world beaters. This is not Clemson. This is not Notre Dame. And I'm really interested to see how Larnigan looks against a better defense. So I'm glad that he's going to get to play in this game. Now, at practice, we saw a lot of Grayson James. The piece that I thought as well, in terms of crisis, was the one piece that worried me that if Larnigan was going to miss time is, given what we saw for the last month and a half, if it's Grayson James, totally fine, right? Who's his backup? Enzo Anjora, a walk-on. And as much as some folks like him, I'm not ready to say that BC would win any games with Enzo Anjora at quarterback. Not a knock on him. He's a great walk-on. and he does a nice job at practice, probably running the scout team for them too, right? The other big news, there's two other injury news I think that's worth mentioning, is Shaker Reisick is back at practice. Now, Shaker is the freshman quarterback from Oklahoma who has missed all of summer camp after having a monster spring. Reisig, it just surprised me. I think it happened during conditioning. He came in a boot the first day of camp, and O'Brien was up front with that. He didn't explain what the injury was, but he was in a boot. We've seen him kind of get more and more off of that. By the time practices ended when I could go, he was walking around, throwing after practice. So I didn't know where he was going to be at, but he was back practicing. So now you are 3 deep at quarterback with guys that can play, guys that you would be able to win football games with. Because I think Shaker is better. He's a freshman, so you got to give him a little bit of leeway there. But he's very good. He's O'Brien says all the time, like, all 3 of these quarterbacks have a good head on their shoulders and can help win us football games. So it's good to see Reisig back as well. I'll tell you the truth. I didn't think he would even be suited for any games this year. He on Saturday he was in street clothes, so to see him back at practice was I would say a little bit of a surprise because I just didn't think he would be back. The other big injury news is something O'Brien brought up in his press conference, and that's Owen Stodmeyer, the defensive tackle, is back. He's been cleared to play. That was a scary, scary situation. O'Brien's talked about it that, at practice, Mike Sidley was there when this happened. Something happened, and he ended up having to be taken away by ambulance. They had to check him out, and the hospital, I honestly had no clue what his availability was going to be like because the staff's not going to tell you that. But when you have something that you have to leave by ambulance for, it could be something as simple as a stinger. It could be something like a concussion. I don't know. Like, those are the types of things when that kind of stuff happens that could be the lower end of things to something severe. And it could be any of those things with him. And I don't know what that would be. But to hear that he's already back week 2 of season, that's a huge boost for this defense. Stodmeyer was projected to be the starting nose tackle going into the season. And to get him back, that really solidifies your defensive tackle position because last weekend, I thought Sid McConnell and Quan Williams were very, very good. You look at their Pro Football Focus grades, and they had very good ones too. So you now have 3 really solid defensive tackles that you can roll with. And he's the real leader. I mean, O'Brien said it in his press conference that even though he's not a captain, Stodmeyer's a huge leader on that defense. So to get him back, another veteran, and hopefully he's ready to go at 100% because that's going to be a big one for BC. Now, the other injury that I didn't get any info on today because I wasn't at practice, was Cam Martinez. Cam Martinez, cornerback, was in street clothes as well on Saturday. Don't know what's going on there. I don't know why he's not playing, but that's the new one to watch for. So we'll have to keep an eye on that one as well. But, even though he didn't play, you saw a lot of Carter Davis, and seeing a lot of Carter Davis out there is not a bad thing. If you haven't checked out his press conference, I can't really talk a lot about it here because he threw a lot of 4-letter words out there at different points, and I would get censored by that. So I can't repeat back what Carter said, but it's a really good one because the one thing about that secondary is they got a lot of swagger. They got a lot of swagger, and it came out very clear when he talked. I love it. I love a good secondary that feels confident in what they can do. Now, in a moment, I want to talk about the schedule. After week 1, did my expectations change? I'll give you my thoughts on all of that in just a moment. Mazda crafts cars for those who choose to do more than simply move. They follow what moves them every time they drive, and that's what makes Mazda stand out. They go beyond safety, style, and performance to deliver a driving experience that feels alive in every detail. Mazda offers more than safety. It's won more 2012 IIHS Top Safety Picks awards than anyone else. You can feel it in the moment you get behind the wheel. The smooth handling, intuitive controls, and standard all-wheel drive in every crossover SUV. Whether it's a quick trip to practice or a weekend road trip, Mazda makes even everyday drives feel special. It's the small details that make the big plays. And just like that, there's more to every player than there's more to every Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. The NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for a kickoff you can't miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel. I had a great weekend with FanDuel. The Miami Notre Dame game, nailed it. The South Carolina Virginia Tech game, nailed it. UNC and TCU, oh my gosh. I wish I jumped up the spread on that one because I nailed that one too. And you can get that's the great thing with them. You can get alternative lines. You can find everything on FanDuel. It's so easy to use. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black of Eagle Insider. To all my first listeners, to all of you who made Locked On Boston College your first listen every day, you guys know what it's at. We've been covering Boston College football, all summer long. You've been hearing me at camp. I've been putting up shorts all up on YouTube. If you have not checked out YouTube yet, I got special videos up there. I've got clips from the press conferences, from my staff, from myself. Videos after games. It's all up there. Check it up on YouTube. Just look up Locked On BC. The details are in the show notes. So, week 1 is in the books. And one of my favorite games to play is, do my expectations change after 1 week of football? Now, you look at around the league. You have guys like, obviously, Florida State. Looks like $1 million right now. Even Tommy Castellanos, who obviously I've been vocal about how I feel about what happened here, look great against Alabama. Obviously, their expectations are higher. UNC, neither of these teams BC play, look like poop against TCU. They looked horrible, and their expectations are going to go lower. Now, this week, you saw Clemson lose. You saw Notre Dame lose. You saw Syracuse lose. So, what are my thoughts after those types of games? Well, for Clemson and Notre Dame, here's my thoughts. I still think they're a reach for BC to win. They both lost to top 10 teams, and they were both right in it to the end. Notre Dame went down to Miami, and they had them on the ropes, and they were, coming back pretty hard. CJ Carr started to figure things out pretty quick near the end. But the big piece with both of those, with that team, and for Clemson too, is they are just so good in the trenches. And that kept them in the games. Even when when Clemson couldn't score, Kate Klubnik looked, pedestrian out there at times. Those lines just were still pretty strong. And I think that's a tough matchup for BC. But I will say this. Even though I still would pick both of those teams to beat BC, I feel like they're no longer that you're running into a juggernaut. That you're no longer running into this unstoppable force that you have no chance against. I don't think that's the case anymore. You get both of these teams at home. And both of these teams showed that they are flawed a little bit, and you can beat both of them. So BC, if you think that Bill O'Brien can get them jacked up, they can get them prepared to not play complementary football, to limit mistakes, then maybe they could. Maybe they could win against Notre Dame or Clemson. So I'm going to keep, if I was to rate it, I would say it went from no chance to, hey, it could get interesting. That's where I'm going to leave Clemson and Notre Dame. Other teams out there, I thought Georgia Tech looked pretty good against Colorado, but definitely there's some issues with that team that you can exploit. I don't think Syracuse is anything. I'm sorry. They lost to Tennessee, but that defense did not look good at all. And that's something me and Mitch Wolf of Eagle Insider have been saying for a while. Like, the fact that you had to go out and get George Rooks to fix your defensive line kind of shows you where they're at. Like, not a knock on George Rooks, but he's not going to fix your defensive line. And they got gashed. They let up 40-plus points to Tennessee. So I feel like they're exactly what I said they were going to be. Pitt was fine. They played Duquesne. Louisville, they played Eastern Kentucky, so that doesn't really count all that much. Same with UConn. I don't even know who they played. The other one that goes more to the other side is Cal, and I got to give more respect for Cal. They have their freshman quarterback Jackson. So I don't have the name in front of me. Highest rated quarterback in the ACC this week. So he's a former 4-star that was committed to Oregon and flipped to Cal. He looked really, really good. So credit to him. That team, they look tougher. I think they definitely look tougher. So that was my other thought on that. Otherwise, you look at the rest of the schedule. Stanford's still terrible. Louisville, as I said, they are what they are. SMU looked fine. But again, I still say that they're beatable. And that's where your schedule kind of lies. I've already kind of gone over every other team on your schedule. So nothing drastic. And no, sometimes you watch these seasons and things happen and it's an injury or something, right? That changes everything. You go back to 2023, that bowl game. It was Preston Stone who was supposed to be the starter. You got a very young Kevin Jennings in that game instead, and it really kind of flipped it because I honestly believe if Preston Stone's out there throwing the ball much more efficiently, they win that game. But that happened, and it happens all the time. Something could happen. A key player goes down for yourself, for them, and you win or lose it. Now, the other one, of course, is going to be the one we're going to talk about next, which is Michigan State. They played Western Michigan and held on to beat them. Only scoring 2 points in the second half, though. We'll talk about who they are and what they look like in just a moment. The Charitable Irish Society has been part of Boston's history since 1737, making it the oldest Irish society in the Americas. With deep ties to Boston College, its leaders and members continue a proud tradition of service. Today, the society is still living its mission, raising thousands of dollars each year to help immigrants in need, Irish and non-Irish alike. Last year, their support helped a family from Northern Ireland who faced a medical crisis and couldn't cover rent and bills. You can be part of the impact. Membership is just $75 a year, and it goes directly to helping families when they need it most. And mark your calendar. The annual Silver Key Dinner is coming up October 29th at the UMass Club, honoring Archbishop Henning. Get your tickets for the annual Silver Key Dinner and join the Charitable Irish Society today at www.charitableirishsociety.org. Again, that's www.charitableirishsociety.org. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. My wife and I, we have been on about making sure that we're saving money for college for our kids. With Monarch, we have been able to track how much we've saved and what goals we need to set for ourselves. It's easy, and I love using it. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONCollege. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black here, and my everydayers who have been listening to Locked On Boston College have known that Michigan State really is the biggest game on their schedule. It really is, because last week was fun. Obviously, blowing out any team and scoring a ton of points is always a fun thing to watch. But we really still don't have a full picture of what Boston College is and what the issues are going to be and the strengths of this team is going to be. That should show itself against Michigan State, because you're playing a team that is a peer team that has similar, profile to what you have. They were 5-7, I think, last year. You beat them last year. But this should give you a better thermometer, of what the season could look like. Are we in good shape, or is this going to be a disaster? And I think this should show, it should show you where Dylan Lonergan's at, where that offensive line is at, how the defensive line can play, and can the secondary win you football games? Because I think that's going to be a key too. You're playing against Aiden Childs, who, if you read a lot of college football magazines or listen to podcasts or whatever, he's a favorite for a lot of folks about a guy that's about to take that next big step. We saw him last year. He, had a few good throws. He was a little bit mobile at times, but he also threw 4 interceptions, including the game-clinching turnover to Max Tucker. So, he has obviously a big arm. He's a big quarterback. There's a lot expected to him. Now, last year when you played Michigan State, if you don't remember, they were missing like their top 4 or 5 wide receivers. It was crazy. They were down a ton of guys. Now, you were playing in the rain, so it wasn't like you were going to be, hucka-chucka football here. But not playing with Nick Marsh was a big loss. And he's obviously back and ready to go. So he had a touchdown in their season opener against Western Michigan. And, he's a big factor. So who do you have to cover him? Or how do you figure that out? That's going to be a big factor. Their offensive line, just looking at some of the stories coming out from Michigan State writers, was a bit of a problem in that season premiere. The first game of the year, it sounded like the Spartans, the second half, they just had trouble blocking. So that is a factor to watch for. Their defense looks like it's much better. They've brought in 27 transfers since last year, and many of them are going to play key spots for them this year. And finally, they're going to be able to run the ball unlike Fordham. They ran for 184 yards their first game. Their running back ran for over 100 plus yards and had a touchdown. They're good there. Plus, you take all those pieces together, it's a road game where BC only won, one game? I think it was against Florida State last year, and that was it. Every other win came at home. So that's going to be a big factor because you want to show you can win on the road. And you look at the schedule coming up, you need to win games like Michigan State. You can't give up these 50-50 type games. So you have to go out there and you need to execute. So when I was saying earlier that you have Dylan Lonergan, you're not sure where, he missed practice. He's going to be ready by Saturday. Hopefully he's at 100% because you cannot drop this game. It's a very, very important game for BC. And you're playing against Jonathan Smith, who's a very good head coach. And, a team that should be better than they were last year. They almost beat BC last year. Remember that. It took a Tommy Castellanos touchdown pass to Lewis Bond with like a minute plus left and a miracle interception in the end zone for BC to win that one. BC didn't play great. They're going to have to play better, especially on the road. So on tomorrow's show, we're going to be doing a crossover episode with Locked On Spartans. If you had not checked it out last year, we did that last year. It was great. So I'll be talking from a BC perspective. He'll give us the Michigan State perspective. We'll have a great conversation about that. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, TikTok. I'm everywhere. Check us out on TikTok. It's a fun one to use if you have not done so already. I'm trying to add more and more videos to that, so check that out. And we will see you all again tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.